to Road Gang Radio with Jimmy Mack, Lindsay Lawler.
Give me a minute, y'all. I'm coming.
And you, because if you're listening, you're in the gang. Take it away, founding member Phone Master Dre.
You are in the gang because this is Road Gang Radio live with Jimmy Mack from the Fastport Studios.
Hey, by the way, you want to talk about the spooky season? I actually walked into a hurry up and wait time continuum, by the way. I literally have gotten so good at my job, I've gotten bad again. One of the things I do when I lay out a sheet, the prep work for the show, I actually have what we would call kind of the first 25 plays called, the way you often see in a football game. Yeah. I actually jumped ahead and was looking at tomorrow's schedule at the bottom of the notes and literally told you before we went to the break. And by the way, I told you that Al Hanley was going to be here. I told you the Chief Operating Officer of the CDL School and Troop and Transportation since 2025 of June was going to be here. I done told you all of that, like Ted DiBiase used to tell you on Mid-South Wrestling. I told you all that stuff, and then we go to the break, and I literally say, hey, guys, Washington Trucking Week is coming up next. Washington Trucking Week is never on a Wednesday. It's always on a Thursday. What's happening here, and prepped up for it, got all my notes in front of me, good to go. Hey, Al, good morning, and welcome to Education Station.
Hey, Jimmy. Thanks for having me back. All good, brother.
And by the way, this is and what's really funny about it is I've been looking forward to this conversation in particular because we've actually been doing Education Station for the better part of 4 years now, Dre, and we have had over 400 original guests on this segment, voices from all aspects of how we train the trainers, how we train the next generation of truck drivers, how we get the country up to speed to make sure that we have people in it for the long haul as opposed to the in and out crowd who show up today and that are gone tomorrow. Al, let's just go from the top. Talk a little bit about your own background here and about what the CDL School and Troops into Transportation. Talk to us about founding this particular institution. Let's just start there.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks for having me. Third generation trucking school owner. Grandparents founded the first school in upstate New York in 1963 and grew it, and my dad and uncle took it over in the late 60s, 70s, and 80s, and then brother and sister and I co-founded the CDL School brand in 91, and been running it ever since, and it's been quite a journey. In 2012, we founded the Troops into Transportation program that was helping transitioning service members and vets get their CDLs and get employed with great American companies. And in 2018, we joined the Transforce family, and I ran the platform for them for 4 years or so. Took some time off, did some other things, and they brought me back in June to do some new things with the company, and we're having a blast. So we're making it great.
And by the way, what you also do, and anybody who actually has studied what you've done understands that you not only bring immense institutional knowledge, but one of the things about having institutional knowledge that is accumulated is that it's meant that you've had to had this kind of rolling convoy that has picked up new ideas and new things while shedding things that have proven not to work in the past. Can you talk
Sure.
a little bit about that longevity piece in there? Because institutional knowledge is great, but not being able to adapt to the new challenges and obstacles or the new technologies that often present themselves
Yep.
often leads to people not being able to continue. Talk about that balance between understanding the values that you guys started with over, close to 40 years ago and where you are now.
Yeah, the values and the methodology, again, is the methodology. It's based on what we call CDOR, comprehension, demonstration, observation, and repetition. So first, with students, you get comprehension, which is typically in a theoretical or classroom environment. Then there's demonstration. Master instructor demonstrates exercises for them in the range or on the road, and then observing the students doing those and then practicing with repetition. So, the technology part's really interesting because that's where we're adapting, right? We digital theory delivery, online comprehension delivery has changed in 60 years, right? You used to have to sit in a classroom, an instructor would talk to you for 8-10 hours, no more, right? So we've really explored and exposed to digital theory delivery with online training for that comprehension, multilingual. We have live instructors that do that. And then we also have some traditional in-person. So being able to adapt to different modalities of way you convey that information is important. And then just some other things like with making sure students, before they get to the range, have comprehension of the exercises going in. They have resources they can rely on, using some simulator technology, using some cool in-cab video and camera technology for the students, so it's really a mobile classroom. You got to always kind of be pushing the limit and be a curious person to see how can I make things better for the student, right?
Al Hanley joins us this morning, the Chief Operating Officer of the CDL School and Troops into Transportation. He has actually gotten back in the game. What I was curious about, too, is, one of the things about the new technologies in regards to education is they give more and more people access, and they give more and more people opportunity. I was kind of hoping you get a chance to talk about how we prevent access from also creating distance, because one of the complaints about online learning, one of the complaints about that is that there are certain students who actually learn in person a whole lot better. So how do we create an environment with using that technology that allows more people to have access, to not let that access also put up a wall of human connective distance? Am I making sense?
Yeah, you are. And I think maybe 10 years ago that was a concern. But, one of the things we've noticed, 99% of our students have that powerful supercomputer in their pocket called the smartphone. And what we've done with our content is we've made it video and audio based. It's in bite-sized chunks, so each kind of module is less than 8 minutes. So a student can acquire at the pace that's right for them. Now, we also have a more structured format where it's remote, and again, from their phone or from their computer, they attend for 3 to 4 hours. Some people call them Zoom classes. And then we also still revert for those people that just don't like those two modalities, in person. But we're finding the completion rate of the digital self-paced. Again, we do what's called a hybrid approach, where we ask them to attend an orientation kickoff, a check-in. We have a couple of scheduled checkpoints throughout the week. We're finding the completion rates are just as strong in the self-paced mode as it is in the more traditional classroom format. So again, we're very careful about that, right? Because access is important and people do learn different. But at the same token, fortunately, the body of knowledge about how to safely drive and the basic knowledge you need as an operator from a theory point of view is pretty stable, right? Trucks are pretty much the same as they've been for, call it 30 years. So the information they're learning is stable, which helps.
By the way, I do like that the delivery system has changed, the ultimate product and the ultimate onboarding, though, that you still have to step into a cab of a truck. And the other thing I really, really like, and I'm kind of curious, like I said, this is another conversation for another day. I love the idea, though, of kind of setting up the orientation where there is a check-in. I do like the fact that the human factor remains, and I like the fact that if a student, that we're not trying to say this is the only way to do it. We're saying that most people seem to be responding well to this. And for those that might struggle a little bit, they still have access to maybe make a human connection down the line in a much more in-person way. But yeah, that makes a lot of sense as far as an answer goes. There's a lot of people who are beginning to kind of look at different ways of learning, different ways of carving out a profession for themselves. Trucking, for both the military and for a lot of young people, presents some of those opportunities. The problem is not a problem, and you don't have this problem because you represent quality product. How do students moving through the world, hoping to get a destination that puts them in a place that gives them a destination to drive to, how do they pick the right school?
Oh, geez, that's a great question. And our one of our partners is CDLExpert.com, and they have a great series on what to look for when choosing a quality behind the wheel school. First and foremost, Jimmy, all students out there, anyone that's thinking of getting their CDL, when you go to a school, ask them if they're licensed, right? every school out there generally has to have some form of regulatory approval, be it the FMCSA or their state authorities. Ask them to see their license. May I see a copy of your license, right? Any quality school is going to be falling over themselves to show you that. I mean, it seems rudimentary, but you'd be surprised that there's some out there that haven't done that. Another good thing is, does that school have a set of published rules and regulations, what's called a school catalog? A quality provider will have those things, and that's a statement, just like a university or another private school. They'll tell you what the rules of the game are in that institution, and it's a consumer disclosure. Another one is an enrollment agreement. Do they have a written document that outlines the hours of the course, the tuition you're going to pay, what the expectations are, and if you change your mind, can you get out of the contract, right? Basic kind of consumer disclosures that in my time off from the schools and transforce, with the explosion of providers out there from 2022 to 2024, you're shocked at how many are not doing that.
By the way, that is such a great insight that actually sets people up for success later on too, because if they're doing that, that is one more step to not signing into a bad lease purchase agreement. That if you learn that lesson right there and then, if you actually understand that you have to actually read the paperwork and do and look at the fine print, if you learn that as an educational model for what the education you want to get is, you are much less inclined, having learned that lesson, to then fall into the prey of what is happening over in some places in California and across the country with these really kind of predatory purchase agreements. I mean, it really sets you up for success. And by the way, pedagogically, Al, it just strikes me that you guys are trying to figure out ways to have the pedagogy present every step of the way, that the methodology for your approach is even on the onboarding process, correct?
Oh, absolutely. Look, we don't do it because we have to. We do it because it's the right thing to do, right? You don't want people in there that feel tricked or hoodwinked, right? Because that doesn't make a good student. It doesn't make a good driver. And it all starts on your recruiting practices and just kind of how does the admissions flow work? 100%.
All right, follow-up question, by the way. So choosing a good CDL school, and you've also made a real point of saying, do they have an enrollment agreement? And let's just say that everything checks out fine there. Every once in a blue moon, you discover that and here's the thing sometimes kids go to I'll use college as an example. Sometimes kids go to great colleges, and they get there, and after a semester, they're not lazy. They're not people who don't work hard. I'll give you an example. My nephew, Jack, made the dean's list at the University of Arkansas, got to the end of it, decided, you know what, I want to be a linguistics expert in the Army, and off he went. And good for him. How do we onboard people and tell them, hey, even if everything checks out and the place is legit, how can you figure out it's not for you, or a particular program might not be for you?
Yeah. We quite honestly, it's super rare. We do have a high completion rate because we have a great methodology with our training. And, like Mr. Miyagi said, there's no such thing as a bad student. There's only a bad teacher. So we do invest in our staff and our teachers to give them those recipes for success. Not 100% of our graduates go and ultimately drive a truck. We get that. I think they put their CDL to work at some point, at some of their career. Maybe it's logistics, maybe it's warehousing. The benefit, I guess, with trade school and blue collars is you're not looking at 4 years to figure out you don't want to be a sociologist or a psychologist. You kind of learn within a 2-3 week period. Yeah, I did it. Not for me. I'm going to look and how to deploy it other ways. So I guess the time risk for students in trucking is a lot lower than some of your traditional. I mean, your nephew's a good example. He probably took some things that he learned and leveraged it and did something more exciting to him. So he had a 6-month investment or a semester investment. So hopefully that answers the question.
It answers the question beautifully. By the way, and this brings up the other thing in regards to talking to students out there before they look. And here's the thing. like you say, the time that is spent here is not a 4-year investment or even a year investment. A lot of times, it's a shorter process. But
Yeah.
when you're talking to people, the challenges that students face when they come in, what are things that you would remind students of? What are things that any good CDL program would remind students of before they get started? We talk about that orientation, that onboarding, but
Yeah.
even before then, how do you tell students this is the thing for you, and you might be able to parlay this into something else, or I want you to think long and hard about where you are in life and what's going to happen next? How do you approach that?
I think that's exactly it. It starts with the admissions advisor and really talking and listening to the person. Why are you interested in this field? Do you know anybody that's in this field? Tell me about their experience, right? That is definitely helpful to know what they know and in some cases what they don't know or what they're guessing at, so that you can level set them with the right expectations. What is the first 6 months going to look like? What is the first year going to look like? And the other thing that I think we do, and I'm sure, again, good quality schools do this, we show them kind of a 4-year career path, right? Where what I've always been, was phenomenal about trucking, and this resonates very well with the veterans and the military folks, because they're structured to look at things like this after their time in the military, is again, show them what that career path, and then educate them on the fact that 100% of everything you're touching, for the most part, was delivered by a truck, and it touches everything, and it's going to be that way for a super, super, super long time. Certainly, probably my grandkids will still see trucks. So it's about showing them all the potential and making sure their situation. We call it a fact find, and we call it a solution. So we have to get the facts and show why or why not transportation could be a good solution to them.
All right, I want to pivot here for a second to talk about veterans, by the way. And there's a lot of
Yeah.
stuff that you and I have both have heard and discussed about this, and a lot of our listeners know this as well too. But you touched on the idea of, with anytime you're recruiting veterans into the trucking space, the idea of showing them the career path is always a really great recruiting device, because if I know the principle of the objective, Al, then it becomes a lot easier to kind of sign up for what is going on here. But can you talk a little bit about why you believe veterans in particular are uniquely positioned to be great contributors and long-time haulers in the trucking industry?
Geez. Where do I start? Look, someone coming out of the military, whether it's a 4-year, 8-year retiree situation, right? They're taught to be resilient. They're taught to use their initiative when appropriate. They're taught to overcome obstacles, right? They're taught to solve problems and not rely on somebody to solve it for them in a lot of cases, within guardrails. I think that just fits so well to trucking, driving, logistics, transportation, right? That resilience and that personal strength that they're all kind of, drilled into them, no pun intended, really just translates well to the employers. And again, they're used to being patient. They're used to waiting through certain sequences. Whereas somebody that maybe doesn't have that background, those are situations about trucking that maybe frustrate them. Veterans will look at, well, I'm delayed dropping off a load 2 hours. Okay, I'm going to listen to an audiobook and I'm going to make the most of the time. Somebody that's not used to that might decide to quit, walk off the job, right? Not think about how do I make productive use of it. I mean, those are a couple of examples where I've found it very, very successful. And with our graduates, and I want to make a little shout out to our friend Brad Bentley at Fastport. We started with half of the field as semifinalists for this year's truck giveaway, were troops into transportation graduates. And now we're down to 1/4. They're down to 4, and we've got a service member and a graduate in that. So the point is the military teaches them all these great soft skills that really allows them to not only excel as a driver, but with other roles in transportation: warehouse managers, freight supervisors, dispatchers. And the pain in the entry point is like anything; it's the entry level stage. So.
I also I wanted to ask you a question, given your given the institutional knowledge that you possess, and given the fact that you've always kind of kept up with what I call the newfangled technologies. What in terms of your kind of experience as an educator has been something that has been like I would say stopped you in your tracks, where it became for a time a silver bullet of sorts. I've spent a lot of time in the teaching sector, and there are just things that often present themselves where you're like, man, that really accelerates the process. You mentioned the technologies as well, but was there a particular moment in time with the onboarding of technologies, education-wise, or the particular teaching methodology that really changed or allowed you guys to adapt and accelerate what it is you do?
Yeah, I mean, there's all these kind of incremental improvements along the way, right? I'm a little bit of a tinkerer. I like to tell my chief instructors and instructors, you got to be kind of like a plumber in this job a little bit. You have to see where the water comes in, where's the blockage, how do you fix the pipe, and how do you get the output. One big thing probably 13, 14 years ago, I'd gotten a new car, an Escalade. It had a backup camera, and I was like, wow, how cool would this be to put in one of our road trucks, and would that help the students? And we did some tinkering, and we set up in one of our sleeper mobile class units 3 flat screen 15-inch monitors, side view cameras, a camera on the tachometer and the driver's clutch, and we played around with it. We tinkered with it, my brother and I, after about 6 weeks, and then we started tracking it, and we noticed it cut road remediation by 40%, because students now inside the cab while the truck was on the road were seeing the instructor give live instruction to the driver. They were seeing the situational awareness on the big overhead screens, and they were also tying that into how the tachometer worked with the road speed and with the clutch and the foot pedals, and it helped them avoid the mistakes. So that was kind of a really cool watershed thing. And again, it's we're motorheads at heart, so it was just kind of like let's try something out and see how it works. That's one example,
Al, you'll love this. My dad always loves to kind of wax philosophically about the history of America. And at one point he told me, he goes, hey, man, we invented the garage. He loves to remind me of that. He said, Americans invented the garage. He said, basically, somebody had the crazy idea, what if we took the barn and smacked it alongside the house and we could just kind of screw around with stuff? And he said, if you want to be a real American, he said, a real American is always futzing around, either in a mechanic shop or in their garage, trying to kind of get things right. I drive my producer crazy, by the way, on a regular basis, just to say, I want to change something today. I want to tweak something today. And that's kind of the gig as an instructor, isn't it? Yeah.
You're always looking for the edge, right? You always want to optimize. You want to do it better. And again, I think you're absolutely right. I think that's innate to the American psyche. Compared to other cultures that maybe are a little bit more structured and hierarchical. I think we are innovators. I think we do like to optimize and just kind of push the limits and always try to do better next week, next month, next year. That's, I think your dad's spot on.
Yeah. The other thing he loves to do, and my mom, by the way, is a long-term teacher, and she always loved to say there is nothing better than learning something while at the same time teaching a student what it is you're learning. That can be one of the most thrilling experiences of all time when you're on board in a new program or a new piece of technology, and you're like, I have no idea. Let's figure this out together. And I think it opens the student up, actually, to further collaboration and being more willing to listen. That a teacher who's willing to say, I don't know, let's go find out that answer together, is a remarkable thing. I mean, you must have had that experience over the time you've done this.
It's curiosity, right? It's you got to be curious. You got to want to seek knowledge, and I think that's just the key. And anything in life, any business, right?
CDLExpert.com. I want you guys to go over there and enter the promo code NEMO2025, straight shot, and you will save on all of those programs over there. If you go to the Tube of You, where we are, by the way, and lots of people are commenting over there, by the way, go to youtube.com / at CDL Expert. If you go over there, you'll see all the other great stuff that's going on. What's happening this weekend? What are you doing for fun this weekend? You got anything coming up?
I'm down here in South Florida, so I think we might get a dry stretch finally. It's that time of the year, and thinking about some golf. Thinking about a little golf on Saturday.
Really fun. By the way, we just got finished the first guest of the morning. We make sure on October 1st we get at least one leaf peeper in the room, and we had the folks from the Shenandoah Valley Tourism Office talking about all the great leaves that are changing. But down here in New Orleans and down there in Florida, you know what we call fall? Less humid. That's what we call it, right? Dry air.
You got it. You got it. It's turning. There's that little nip in the air this morning. It was 75 this morning when I had my coffee at 6:30. So the nip is there.
Al Hanley. Al has joined us this morning. So thrilled to have him. He's a chief operating officer over at the CDL school. He is one of the driving forces behind Troops and Transportation. He is back in the game, and he is here in Education Station. You're welcome back anytime, my friend. Thank you so much.
Anytime. Always enjoy it. Even as a fill-in, have me in. I'm available, buddy.
Thank you, sir. Always good to talk to you.